Right, that's better.
Looking good, mate.
Yeah, that's better. Okay, superb. Okay, so just very, very quickly on the FTSE. The FTSE was really was the leader yesterday, waiting for a head and shoulders pattern um, to mature. But it was a difficult pattern, this, because even though it didn't look like it had gone quite as far as as the left shoulder had done, it really depends on where we start to read the right shoulder, the left shoulder from, and it might well be from here. Which probably would have given this just about enough space to the right hand side to give it that left shoulder, the right shoulder feel. One thing that was evident was that there was some distribution up here. So yesterday we were talking about going long at the monthly pivot. So let's just have a look at what would have happened there. And this would have been difficult. If you do what I do, you'd still be caught in this trade. I didn't go long at the monthly pivot, and there was a reason why, and I'll show you now.
There's a good reason why on my chart. It's just smashed straight through it.
That was well, yeah, and actually, the interesting thing was here that I was looking at this hourly, and I was just seeing if we were going to get a bounce. No, it did bounce a little bit at the monthly pivot.
Well, you got a different chart to me.
Oh yeah,
You're on futures.
these are the futures. Yeah, yeah.
Cash went straight through it, didn't retest it.
Yeah, the problem with that cash chart is that it is a combination of both cash and futures, which is why I find it such a difficult read. That's the only reason I don't really trade it. I don't really follow it. I do kind of trigger my trades on my ATW account because all I have is cash. But I always read this futures chart, even though really you think that the cash would be more reliable. But it's a difficult chart, that one. I find it difficult to kind of get a true read of where things sit, because they can't be generated.
Well, that's a trade for me, see?
Well, this one here.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. You'd be at the lows, wouldn't you, here?
But you look at, I'll just quickly go back to my chart for 2 seconds and
Yeah.
notice the difference. And the difference is, I hope you can see it.
Oh, yeah.
Bang straight through it, no
Yeah.
retest.
Ah, yeah.
Massive
Yeah.
difference.
Yeah,
Massive
huge.
difference.
Yeah, that is huge, actually, and difficult to know which one you read on that front. How far away is your daily pivot?
From the monthly?
No, from price.
From price?
Yeah.
108.8.
So about 10 pips.
Yep.
Yeah, this is 20 pips above. That's interesting. Yeah. Interesting that you when you look at that weekly pivot, though, you see it's pretty much in the same place.
Yep.
You look at those.
Yeah, there's not much in it, is there?
No, and even even the previous
Levels
week.
7455, bang on.
Yeah, I mean the actual level will be different, but the actual way the price action, looking at the bars, that it must be there must be some close correlation there. But yeah, you're absolutely right. It's there's a big difference. So you have to choose one. And I'm not saying that the cash is a bad one to look at, but I always look at the futures, and what happened with the futures. The reason I didn't trade it is that I had an hourly bar which closed below the monthly pivot. So as soon as that happened, there wasn't really a trade on for me. To the upside, what I did was pick it up down here. But price smashed straight through that level as well. So I'm looking to hopefully close that trade at this point here, or maybe hedge it. I'm not sure what I'll do just yet. The concerning aspect of it, of course, is the fact that I agree with you, mate. Is that I think it was quite benign what Joel Powell said, and I was surprised of the reaction that the market actually took. So does this just create a buying opportunity for the market? Because we look back at a reaction like this previously, and it wasn't. It took a little while to consolidate, but this move to the downside, we've had this kind of reaction before. Market stabilize and then continues to push forward. So does this now create the buying opportunity that we've all been looking for? And if I had any bullets in my gun, I'd be going long here anyway. I wish I'd been able to wait just a little bit longer. My long is, when you look at my long, it was triggered. Actually, it was about there. I was slightly below that area there. Now I'm about there with my long, so it's not the best place in the world. But the reason I went long there was because of the this point here. At that point there. Yeah, I think it was that point there. As it came down to this point, I went long, and it's kind of triggered me in a couple of pips higher, obviously. And I knew it was going to get close. It was getting close to this level here. So that was the reason for it, and it did provide a tiny little bounce there, and I'm okay with that long as it goes. I'm fairly comfortable because I would assume that we would probably test that area, which means that I can take the trade off. That's probably what I'll do. Actually, I'll probably just take the trade down at that point. But it is going to depend on how the market reacts today, because we could just fly out the traps and get right back on the hobby horse and not be too concerned at this stage about any more downside. We'll have to see what happens. Obviously, if I can get up to this area, then things are really good. I'll be happy to kind of probably take profit at that point and then see how things establish themselves. Because yeah, it was kind of benign. We were waiting for these levels down here. Maybe it hasn't quite come down to the bottom, but this belt hold is a really significant bar, and the belt hold will always gap down first of all, and it will always close at its highs. So that is a fairly significant bar there, and certainly tradable. That point is certainly tradable. So if the market does drift down here, then I would, if I had any bullets back in my gun, I'd be trading it, because there is a trend line along here as well. This point here, which in truth is the only reason I held on to my long. I wasn't too worried about. I thought I'd get a bounce, and this is the point that I'd be looking for the bounce to happen. So that's the only reason I didn't close down the long. Being concerned that we could come much deeper before we did start to bounce, because the trend is still fairly strong. The weekly chart is still in uptrending territory. And the daily chart, yes, has now broken down. It's broken down some levels, but you would suggest that at least a test would be on offing here. And this is the interesting thing about when the baton changes on a trend, because there are longer term positions, and we know that the longer the stronger is the fundamental chart. So we know that the weekly chart and the monthly chart really are the two charts that we are mostly focused on, forgetting our direction. But there obviously can be some trials and tribulations on the way with any kind of time frame charts here. And the daily chart has broken to the downside. So what this suggests is that the daily chart will probably have a discussion with the traders when it gets to specific levels. But it doesn't necessarily mean that things are going to give way, because the move is to the upside, and with the weekly, and not the monthly, incidentally. Not the monthly. The monthly, when we bring the monthly into play, the monthly chart actually is in a downtrend, because we're looking for a lower low there and a potential lower high.
Funny, we were only speaking about this yesterday, with the fact that the trend lines hadn't been tested. Well, look exactly what happened overnight.
Yeah.
We got the trend line test, didn't we?
Yes, we did, mate. Yeah, we did. And we could get something of a V-shaped recovery here, and this is why I'm finding this whole scenario quite fascinating, and why this is a definite long down here. You don't really need to worry too much about the long down here if you're going to take it on board, because there's every chance that that if this does fail, I mean, you could put stops at the lows of the belt hold. That wouldn't be a problem. But there's every chance, if this does fail, that that this will be one area that would be have a high probability of retesting. So if this is the point, you're not going to have to go through too much. You're not going to have to sweat too much before you see this rebound again. Now, the open is going to be interesting. We got 5 minutes to go, and the market is currently climbing the wall of worry. But I wouldn't be surprised at all to see the market back up to this level, which is why I'm just going to watch out for that daily pivot level, and see if I can make some choices. I'm not convinced that this flush out is actually going to last. I mean, one day, for the market to kind of like be seeing such a strong trend to the upside, and in one day to tank down what would be double its average true range. So, almost 2% lower in a day. It doesn't often do this, so it's a significant bounce is probably in the offing, but I just don't know how high that bounce is going to come.
Find a technical level, mate. That's my advice.
Well, yeah, the DP is the first point of call, but you have to sort of like say that this point here is just below the daily pivot, but it just depends on how strong it is. If it's strong enough, it gets through that point, and then we're probably into this territory here, which would be fantastic. If I could get it off the market there, then I'll actually make a bit of money on the upside as well. But we'll see what happens. So yeah, we got about 5 minutes, mate. So I don't know if you got any candles that you also have and you want to see. Oh, do you know what? I'm not sure if my screen was showing through any of that.
I can't tell, mate. I don't know.
Let's see.
I can't see the broadcast anyway.
We'll go and see if anybody commented.
I can't tell off this platform.
Oh no, it's okay. It's all right. Okay, so yeah, let me pass it over to you and see what you've been looking at.
Yeah, look, frustration really. Not that there's nothing about, but that it just won't shape the way it needs to for me to trade it. And this one's a case in point. It's the euro dollar. And I was saying in the show this morning, my time, that this is a great level to trade from right here. Daily pivot, monthly pivot, broken trade line. All we need to see is this candle get up to here, and we've got a trade. It looks like that's going to trigger that would have been the tradable candle, this one here. It looks like that is going to trigger. Whether it's able to go, I don't know, to be fair, but you've got to be thinking weekly pivot's a beautiful place to take a little bit of profit. I'd certainly be thinking that. And all as tempting as it is just to place a short underneath this candle anyway, put my stops up here, I can't do that because I needed to see a candle that was a little bit bigger than that. This goes to my strategy entirely, which is if the bulls are really strong enough here, they'll take the market in this direction. But if they're not and they come back to this level, then they'll drive the market in concert with this momentum bar. But I've got to see enough evidence that there is a run up here that I can actually take advantage of, and I didn't see that. So unfortunately, well, maybe not unfortunately, maybe it's just not the right time yet, and we get another shot at it. I don't know, but at this point in time, it's just wait and see. And if it goes to the weekly pivot, then it goes there without me, sadly. But that's the way it goes. And that's kind of the frustration that I've got at the moment. Setups looking good, but they just won't set up. Righto, we've got cable. Same scenario. Was looking for a break back under here and a retest of the trade line. Didn't get either. But I did say at the time, if we don't break back underneath this trade line, it's a fairly bullish signal. Now, all I needed to see, if that was the case, was a little dip down here and a reversal off it. So again, I haven't got that little dip down to the monthly pivot. That really would give me a great deal of confidence that the market, if it comes back to this level, would seek higher highs.
Negative looking daily bar, isn't it?
Sorry, mate.
The daily bar in the end was fairly negative on that.
Yeah.
On the pound dollar.
Yes, and came to 131, rejected it out of hand. I'll have a look at that closer.
See, this is the reason that the FTSE was moving earlier than everything else. As cable was strengthening, as it was, the FTSE was weakening. I think there was some worry out there that the FTSE was going to really suffer from strong pound.
Well, it suffered, but I don't know about what it was just strong pound.
No, well, in the end, it was also the Fed. I mean, it just compounded
Yes.
it, So we started out with a pound, and then we compounded things with the Fed. But the pound is we got news and data from the United Kingdom today, haven't we? So that is likely to have some kind of sway on the direction of the pound today.
Yeah, look, the interesting part with the daily chart is, yes, it does look entirely reversible at this point, but you've got to take this into consideration. That trend line has been smashed, and we're really looking to turn the corner here and go back to trend, if you like. So the retracement on this move here looks very much like it could be over. Let me go the other way to start with. Let me pull a Fibbo on that. We'll go to the extreme. So it's bounced off the 50. We're looking for another bounce, maybe back to where? Let me pull it the other way now. Yeah, it's almost at the 50, isn't it? La 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 la, when it rejected it, but it wasn't. Yeah, I can't. I'm still got to be bullish, I think, and look for an entry. Really, I'm ready to go with this, but I just need the right signal. And I was looking this morning and thought, well, daily pivot's it. Daily pivot's the key here. What I need is to get above it and retest it. Well, we didn't get above it. We're just hammering it like hell from below and can't get through it. Look, I'd really like to see this pull away from here, Ash. Give me a monthly pivot test and a false break or something like that, and I'll be in this long. I'm a bit of a bull, I'm afraid.
What, on the pound?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like what I'm seeing.
Yeah. Yeah. So you want a monthly pivot test? So you want it?
I do. I really
down there?
do.
Yeah.
Maybe even if I pinch something through here. Yeah, that looks good. So price down to here, break underneath, back above, retest the confluence, bang. That looks good to me.
Yeah.
So that's where I'm at with the pounds. What would change my mind? Well, yeah, my mind could change. It would take a bigger time frame to do that, of course. And that would be now anything that breaks below here and then retests pretty much the same areas I'm talking about gets me in the opposite direction. What I really need to see is a break of the monthly pivot and then a pullback. Enter here, short. It's actually a better trade if it were to come off.
Yeah, I mean, what about the pullback to the trade line from March? From the highs that is broken out of. I mean, because that would be
this one,
29, 129. Let's have a look what you've got.
Yeah, 129.75 ish.
Yeah, I mean, longer term, if that came back there, would that be something that you would be happy to look at?
Yeah, I just don't think it's going to have the opportunity. If it was going to pull back, I reckon it would have pulled back off this candle. That's why I think this is really a bullish signal. You know, it's a strong break of the trend line. Yes, we hit resistance, but you've got to remember that we're also coming off the Fed news as well. Didn't turn it into a bearish bar, but it was part of the action. So that's it there, right? That's the Fed statement right there. Everything apart from that was looking really strong. So, yeah, I want to find an entry here. Definitely a bull.
Definitely a bull.
Definitely a pound bull. that could be cool for the euro pound trade, of course, which looks like it's going okay again. Was going to, well, I thought about moving my stop on that overnight, but then I thought, where am I going to move my stop to? And the only logical place would have been around about here somewhere. But then, had price gone back here in a hurry, it takes me out. And this is the obvious level it's going to go back to if it goes back there quickly. So I needed to give it a bit more time to get clear of that horizontal level, so that when it does come back to the trend line or trade line or whatever you want to call it, it is clear of that level.
Yeah, I mean, the weekly pivot wouldn't be an area that you'd consider right now, would you?
No, I want to give it more space.
Yeah.
We're banked twice here, and I can afford to give this as much room as I need to, and I absolutely see this as a target. So here's where I'll start to tighten my stops.
Yeah.
And I'll bring them right tight then, because I'll bank all this then.
Yeah.
And I'll probably just trail it off an hourly chart or something like that.
Yeah. I think you're right, mate. I think giving these trades room is always a good idea when you've got things going in your favor like this. I think it's a terrible habit to meddle with trades, and I'm an awful one for things like that. I have to say, getting a decent entry and then seeing the price go in your direction. I have to say I'm nowhere near as bad as I was. So I'm taking much better profits from the market these days, but I could still probably have a little bit more control with just sitting on a trade for a little bit longer, when things are moving in the right direction. And I think this is a really good skill to have, and being patient is great, and accepting that actually you've made money here either way.
Yeah, look, I think if you've got clear targets and clear wrong points, I'm wrong here if this breaks, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not wrong because I've made money, but I'm gone. If this breaks, I'm gone because it'll go to here.
Yeah. Can I just quickly address Mohammed's question in the room?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's go to MT4. Make sure you got my screen. Right then, so I don't know whether Jeff and I do it in a slightly different way, but when you use the trend line, there's two ways you can do it. So when you go to your trend line tab, which when you open up your platform, you will see up here you've got the trend line tab here, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and it says, if you hover over it, it says draw trend line. So that's your trend line tab up there. So you want to select that. I'm going to bring back the other screen. And then when you've got your trend line tab, you'll see that there's a little line under a cross. Just go to the very, very highest point and just draw it down, and initially just drop it in. But what I do, because I'm using the ray tool, if you double click it and you see these 3 points appear, I'm just going to move 0.3 over and hover over the next high, and it snaps it down to that high. Now, if you don't want the ray, I really like the ray because that's what gives you the ability to do that, bring that snap in. But if you don't want the ray, just right click on your trend line, go to trend line properties, and click off the ray. It's in parameters. It's the second tab. You go to parameters and click off the ray, and when you hit OK, the ray will go. And that way you can just move it where you like and just put it just above the highs where you like it. The reason I don't like doing that is that you may be just slightly off of those highs, and it depends on the importance you put on the trend lines. If you look at the price as really significant, then you want it as tight as possible. So that's why just hovering just above the level gives you the snap. Does that answer your question, mate? Or are we having any other troubles with that? It's a good question. This is empty. Anything that we're learning initially is going to take a little while. So it's a good question. And MT4 actually can be a little bit tricky. Yeah. It's simple when you do it. When you do it enough times, you'll find it really simple. But if you have any other issues with it, just yeah, no problem, mate. No problem. Let me know if you've got any other issues with it. Just let me know. We'll go through it again, because it all seems simple when you do it a lot. But initially it is kind of, all this stuff is also quite tricky. So don't feel that any question is a bad question, because they're all relevant as we're learning here.
Favorite saying of mine is, you can't know what you don't know.
No, you can't. No, you can't know what you don't know. You're very right. You're very, very, very true. Very philosophical, mate. Very insightful.
See what happens after a couple of bottles of
wine. Okay, so let's go back to you. The FTSE 100 is struggling a little bit at this level, but we still have this belt hold in play. Belt hold on the 4 hour as well as the hourly. Really tempted to hedge this down here, but I'm resisting the hedge, resisting the chance to hedge my long at this point, because I'm so keen on this long from here that I don't really want to hedge it, but it might end up being to my detriment. But what I will do if it does break down here is I won't react straight away. I'll probably let it go, and then I'll probably hedge on the way back up if it bounces from this point here, then, which is around about 30 pips away, then I'll let it come down and then bounce back up, and then maybe I'll put the hedge on after that. But I'm really looking for this to pick up at this point. Okay, mate, back to you.
Rightio, happy days. Let's hope it does. We have had an open, haven't we? And I haven't really had a look at, not that I guess there are people in the room who don't know. I rarely, almost never trade the opening candle, open 30-minute candle.
Okay, well, just while you're on that, mate, Mohammed's got something else. No, it's not a basic question. All questions are as complex as they are at the time when we don't know. So don't worry about that. So horizontal levels, do we consider the highest point or the closing? Well, this is a really good question, isn't it, mate? Because I think this is
absolutely
it's subjective, isn't it?
Look, and it's the same with trend lines.
Yes.
Do you use the open or do you use the high?
Yes.
Or the close and the high, whichever way you're going. It completely depends on your personal preference, I think.
Yes.
And that's gleaned over a period of years doing whatever you do. Personally, I use the highs, and most people, well, that's actually not 100% true. I use the highs for my trend lines and trade lines, and the lows for my trend lines and trade lines. But when I'm looking at horizontal levels, I tend to use the close or the open and close.
Yeah.
And if you ask me why, I really can't give you an answer that's going to make any sense. It's just a feel thing.
I mean, I'm happy to give you an answer which makes sense to me. And I think, and Jeff will probably agree with me on this, I think it really depends on what the horizontal level is. Because if you're looking at a chart, for example, the FTSE 100, then if I look at a horizontal level along here, what I've got is, this is a close here. However, what I've got is a dip. But when it goes, touches and goes up, touches and goes up, that tells me that the horizontal level is at that point. So it's really about confirmation. You don't know. It could be, the horizontal level may well be down here, but as soon as price fails to come down and bounce, when it comes down and bounces early, comes down, bounces, and comes down and bounce, then it really starts to confirm that what's being watched is this price and not this low. So it really does just, you can't really say, I can't say with any certainty that the horizontal level as we come down is this point or whether it's this point. But I'll know if it bounces from this point that this is the horizontal level that will start looking a lot more attractive, and we'll go along here. This horizontal level, I think it ended up being the close, because the close it did come above. Let's take it above actually to start with. It came above and it came above, so that looked pretty good. But this is pretty scruffy over here. But when we bring it down to the close here, It comes above, but the close is there. Then it rejects it. So when it rejects it and it comes down, that's the bounce point. So that would, by the time it gets to here, that's the point that I would have looked at it needing to clear before it goes higher. But that doesn't mean that I won't give some respect to the highs still. I won't just discard them just in case the horizontal level changes because it can, depending on the sentiment out there. But I think what you really want to do with horizontal levels is look at where there is confluence, look at where it seems to be an agreement. This one looks like it's an agreement with the highs rather than the close, because this close gets scruffy. It's an agreement to start with, actually. We're looking at the close of that point because of that one there. But by the same token, yeah, that close is okay. But when it comes over here, then it starts to become probably more reliant on the high. So just look where the multiples are, and you'll get a clearer picture. Not really easy, it's not really an easy answer. But what I tend to do is let the market tell me by letting the story unfold. But I will always start. My starting point is always the close.
Just adding to that,
yeah,
the very, very best horizontal levels do stand out.
Yeah.
And you'll see them as highs and lows. So where a level's been supported becomes resistance. And oftentimes you'll see that one of them will be an open and close and the other one will be a tail. So it's a matter of seeing where that level is and adjusting accordingly. So it may be a cloud of a price that's 5 or 10 pips. It may not be an exact level.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
what I really look for is where it's been both support and resistance. They're the absolute best of your horizontal levels.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, and you're right, really. Yeah, you just want, it's the touches and the bounces that determine it. Absolutely that. And the touch is probably is a hold, whether it's a hold of support or hold of resistance, and the bounce is probably the latter. Actually, it might be the other way around. I don't know, but yeah, you just want to look for multiples, basically. But as Jeff says, when you see a horizontal level which was support and there's now resistance, or vice versa, then it does hold a lot more water. No problem.
Oh yeah,
No problem.
The best.
Right, back to you then, mate. Back to you. I don't know what where we're at with the analysis.
Well, it's just going through the ones that I was really having a look at this morning, and we got back to euro pound. I think we spoke about that. Spoke about how I wasn't going to move my stops, give it plenty of space. Very frustrating. Again, is this one Aussie Kiwi? Now, I know there are a few people in this trade already long, and I've been just bursting my clacker valve trying to get into this. And when I speak about horizontal levels being both support and resistance, this is an interesting case in point. You can see the red line there, which of course is depicting what I believe is the level, the bounce level. And you can see what price has done when it's reached there. It's straddled it for the last, 16 hours, and we're still going. So that's telling me everything I need to know. Price doesn't know what it wants to do here. Why, I don't know. Why are we in consolidation? We've had the Fed announcement, but we're talking about two currencies that generally track each other, dependent on what commodities in favor at the time tends to adjudicate as to which is the stronger here. Certainly, when you've got a news announcement, as we had yesterday on the Aussie, you find, the Kiwi. Was it Kiwi? Going the other way. I think I'm upside down. I think it was the Kiwi yesterday. Anyway, it doesn't matter. It was a news event. And it drove the market where? Straight to a horizontal level, which is a resistance area called the weekly pivot. So a technical level. And guess what happens thereafter? We come straight back to another technical level. I'm just bursting to get into this long, but I can't because it's not giving me the right signal that I should. I could speculate and say, well, okay, the daily pivot's a great place for this to bounce, and just put an entry, put a limit entry, but that's not the way I trade. That's the way a lot of people trade, mind you, and that can be a very successful way to trade. but I need confirmation rather than speculation. I'm still speculating, but I need a little bit more than just a level. I need to see something like a candle pattern, and I'm not seeing that in any way, shape, or form. I'd love to, and really what I'd like to see now is daily pivot give way and monthly pivot be tested. Then I'd look for the bounce, because this bounce point at the moment that I've chosen isn't acting like a bounce point, to be fair. It's acting like a committee room where we're having a little meeting. How do we solve that? Do we go to a 1 minute chart and trade the range? Well, we could if we were Superman, but I'm not Superman. So I need to slow down a bit and go to the 30-minute chart and see what I can find. So if I'm trying to get long, I've always got two options. One will be off resistance as a breakout, and the other will be off support as a break in. So if this is the range, I can trade a breakout off the trade line. And if that candle were to close down here somewhere, that would probably not be out of the question. If I was trading at this time of day, I'd probably look at that candle and go, that's tradable. But I don't trade at that time of day. If you were, you may well be in this right now. So I need to wait. My preference is always to trade long off support rather than off resistance, for obvious reasons. Well, I think obvious reasons. But if you need that explained, then if you're trading at resistance, it's a lot riskier than it is trading off support, because guess what? Support holds the market from falling, and resistance resists the market from rising. Pretty much I don't know. I was going to say obvious thing, but maybe it isn't that obvious.
Do you know what?
Again, you kind of know what you know, don't you?
Yeah, and I also think that that things are obvious in that. This is the thing about the market, isn't it? Things are obvious, but unfortunately, we kind of allow emotion to get in the way, and that's when we get judgment gets clouded. It's no doubt about it. The other issue is that there's so many different levels of support and resistance. It depends also what you end up trusting, doesn't it?
And on a 30-minute chart and less, there are lots of them, and especially at this time of day where we're coming out of Asia session, which generally is a bit of a bumpy ride and doesn't go too far. So we've got to pick where this market is going to break, and it will break. There's no question, because as the big boys come online, they tend to move the market. They clearly weren't in play here, but you would expect this to break in a fashion, even if it doesn't go, a long way. It will break out of this little consolidation zone. So I've got to pick where that best serves me, really, rather than speculate as to what really might happen. So when I do my analysis, I'm thinking long, but am I thinking long yet is the question. And really, I can't tell from here. I just can't tell. Yes, it's a retracement. You could pull a fibbo on it if you want. You can do whatever you want to it, but it's still not telling me it's ready to go. If I get a bearish bar here that maybe even breaks below this trade line, I think I'd be inclined to place an order long here. But there's one caveat that I would have to look at, and that is this level here. Now, if I'm not prepared to trade through that level, which I'm not, without taking profit, I've got to have enough room here to take profit. And by the time I'm taking into this move with the spreads, I'm around about here somewhere. That leaves me with about 3 pips, maybe 4 pips to take profit before I hit a resistance level, which is not only a resistance level, we were just talking about it, it's also being support. And they're the ones I'm very wary of. So I wouldn't be taking that trade. So again, I'd be looking to trade it off support. And it's really not going to be that much difference off this support, because what will happen and what I'd be looking for is a break to the low side find the support level again, then come back above the trade line, retest it, and it's actually worse. I'm closer to that resistance level. So really what I'm saying here is I need this level to be broken before I can go long, or go long from down here somewhere. So really my options are clear. I either wait for that to happen, or I speculate with high risk, or I do nothing. And that's exactly what I'll choose to do. And that's my MO. That's exactly how I work each and every day. If I'm not prepared to take that risk on, then I'm not prepared to trade at this level. And that they're non-negotiable. That's it. So yeah, I want to go long, but I can't right now. Simple as that. The other one that's frustrating the hell out of me is this one, dollar yen. And I keep seeing cases every single day to trade this, but they're not they're not in the right direction. My bias is to go long here right now. And the only reason for that is I don't see why the dollar's going to weaken right now. That's the only reason. Otherwise, I'm entitled to be a bear here, I think, because we've had a false break, but the false breaks come to nothing because we're back there again. So it's a crazy cross right now, dollar yen. It's really hard to pick. And I think, again, on the basis of why would the dollar weaken, can I see this? I can just see this going, and the refusal for it, if you like, to go further short. I think I've got to just find that opportunity to get into a long position. And what I'm seeing each and every day, yesterday included, was a reversal bar on the monthly pivot. And I said this, I think I don't know if it was in this show or the morning show, probably the morning show. No, it might have been this show. I said if this bar closed below the daily pivot, but not far enough to get below here, so I wanted equal time, 15 pips, I think it was, to 15 pips. Might have been the show I said it in. So stop loss up here, got to take profit here at 1-to-1. And that's exactly what happened. You might have made a little bit more on this if you stayed in it. I didn't take the trade, mind you. And then, of course, the FOMC statement, away we go. But I've got exactly the same scenario here right now. I've got a retest of this trend line or trade line and a rejection of it, and a rejection. Well, it's not really a rejection of the monthly pivot, but certainly to my way of thinking, a bearish signal. So it's a high test bar. So you're entitled to think, okay, I want to go short here. Now, if I put my measuring stick on that one, your entry is probably about there. Your stop loss, well, you wouldn't put your stop loss there. You've probably got to put your stop loss up here. So 30 odd pips into first support, 12 odd pips. Your reward to risk is up to putty.
Looking at that on an hourly,
it's really a frustrating cross right now.
Yeah, I mean, let me just check something. Yeah, did you know the one thing about that is yeah, I see what you mean. It is. Yeah, that is too frustrating, really, isn't it?
It is for me. And I've been swinging. I'm a bit of a swinger on this one. I've been going, okay, long, short, short. And I think really that's enough to tell me that what the hell am I doing? Just walk away. Leave it alone.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's a tricky one. That's a tricky one.
It really is. You know, it really is a tough one.
No, it's the gold call ended up
good
being
call yesterday, mate.
Yeah, it was right, wasn't it? Yeah. And it was one of those that actually during the day, kind of looking at gold, it was looking like it may well, but work out that holding on to it would have been okay, because we continue to move to the upside actually in gold, but all of a sudden, we kind of got this bar. We were starting to really surge forward, which would have given us a 4 pip profit at that point. But then FOMC just came out and boom, straight to the downside. So I think I think the fact that I mean, it really does sort of say in most of these markets that the FOMC ended up being, in some respects, certainly perceived more hawkish than dovish anyway. And this is the difficulty you've got with the dollar yen, isn't it? Because if we look at gold, then gold tells us that that the FOMC, not even reading any of the text and not knowing what they said, this suggests that the FOMC had a hawkish statement. But then when we look across the board at some of the others, and actually even the pound, I think you could say the same with the pound. Initially, it looked like FOMC had a fairly dovish statement, but we are starting to see the pound strengthen now, and we're starting to see the dollar yen, I suppose, freeze, but and making it a very difficult cross to trade. And as I said before, the statistics really show that the dollar and the yen are the two strongest currencies in May. So if that's the case, then probably trading these against each other may not be the wisest option.
Yeah, interesting. I'm happy to leave them alone and let them sort themselves out. Absolutely.
Yeah. Aussie yen as well was the other one we were talking about before. That's just about flattening out now, isn't it? But actually no, it did make a fresh move
It
to the
did.
lows.
Again, another one of those disappointing ones. I was looking for that to test the new monthly pivot before I wanted to find a short. That's gone. So yeah, that's out of my thought process at the moment.
This one's a tricky one, isn't it? Because actually, there is a pattern in some respects which has broken a trend line, but it's just it's held up at support. So you're probably only going to be looking for that area of support. Interestingly, it was the tail that is providing the area here, the tail there, tail on the trend line as well, and
Yeah,
then
look,
there's a close
almost setting up for a trade for me, but
to
not
the upside.
Yeah, to the upside,
Yeah,
almost, but not
yeah,
there.
yeah.
It may yet.
Yeah, I mean, I'd want to
30-minute
see.
candles. Should I have a look, I suppose, and
Yes, of
see if
course you
there's
should, mate.
anything there that's interesting that we might even be able to speculate on?
That's what I'd want
Let
to
me
see.
see. Let's go from the top, shall we? That's looking good again. Euro pound. That's nice. No trade there, of course, for me. Even if I wasn't in this short, I would not be able to find a trade, except, I suppose. Yeah, not quite. Yeah, maybe. Look, it's so crazy to call that a trade line, really. But I've done it for many years now, and oftentimes it's paid dividends. But this is not anything except noise right here. So you can't say that I've got a low here, and I've got a low here, but you can't say I've got a low here. You can't really say I've got a low here. It's just noise. That's all it is. There's absolutely nothing going on there. So if you're looking at this particular scenario here, which is a genuine slingshot setup, you'd be thinking, well, that worked, but really, would I trade that? Well, I don't trade at that time of the day to start with, but if I was in front of the charts, I'm really kidding myself to take that. I've got a 4 pip candle. And yeah, I've got about 6 pips before I find support, but 4 pip candles, really? I can't trade 4 pip candles. And there's good reason for that. If the market moves 4 pips, because I've got tight stops and tight entries, the market's got to move 4 pips and I'm gone. Wow, no thanks. That's not for me, not at all. So yeah, there would be no trade there for me. I don't believe there's just no way I could have got into that. Not that I need to. Euro dollar. Look, I might get this yet, this short that I'm looking for. But it won't come off the 4-hour chart because it's too old to set up. Let me get rid of this to get rid of confusion anyway. So if I'm still thinking short, what I can do, of course, is find a short off the 30-minute charts. And yeah. I look at this scenario here, and it's kind of slingshotty, where you approach the trade line, pull back away from it, but they're two decisive bars, and I rarely trade those, rarely, and I'm not going to on this occasion. What I've always wanted to see is the daily pivot and monthly pivot to be tested, and once that happens, then I'm in the game. But until that happens, I'm not in the game. The problem is going to be, if I want to trade short, of course, I want to come off resistance, and I don't have any confluence in resistance here apart from the two pivots sitting together. So I'm desperate for a trade line through here. So I'm talking well into the probably even US session before that's going to happen. To trade it off support, as I said before, is less than desirable, and something I wouldn't do today because I'm trading straight in to the low of the day, which is something I don't do. So these are the frustrations that I'm going through at the moment. You know, I'd love to be trading, guys. I absolutely love to be in the market because this kind of market is my market. But if it's not setting up for me, then I just can't. Simple as that. Now there goes our dear old pound that we were wanting to trade long, but couldn't, and you know, therein exacerbates the frustration. You'd love to be trading that breakout, but again, what are you going to do? He's going to guess it's going to go. You can't. Well, I can't do that. I need confirmation, and it's just not there for me. And it won't be there for me because I've got no confluence. I don't have a trade line from which to trade. So move on. Next, what else have we got? We've got pound yen. Interesting, Ash. The yen. What the hell's happening with the yen? Why are we seeing the strength that we were looking for not appearing?
I think it might just be a bit early. You know, I don't see why we wouldn't get it with the yen. I think it just might be just a shade early, and it's only.
You know, this I think is a new thing with the yen. As soon as we go into trouble or panic territory, years gone by, the yen would just go nuts.
Yeah.
But it seems to lag that these days. There seems to be, I don't know, a hesitancy to jump to the safe haven.
I
Of
agree
the
with you.
yen.
I guess maybe the fundamentals of the yen have stopped making it the you know, the currency of choice to a degree. You know, and thinking about things like cryptocurrencies, you know, that since they've come on the scene as well, there is another option for people to be putting their money in. And looking at Bitcoin actually is as seems at this stage anyway to be a place where people are still quite keen to put their money. And you know, looking at this Bitcoin chart, the FOMC came out yesterday, and Bitcoin did not seem to move. I mean, this is against the dollar, remember, but it didn't seem to move in the same way that the others did. And when I look at this Bitcoin chart, really, it was shaping for some downside when we got this bar down here. But that's now been swept aside, and now we're starting to grind forward again. So maybe
Do we? Sorry, mate. Do we know what caused that fall, or was it just the way it is?
That, let me just check, because this I'm pretty sure was a market move. That was the 26th of April.
That would be nice to know.
Yeah, let's have a look at the euro.
If it actually does react to some fundamentals, it would be good to know.
24th. Oh no, I mean it does, but there's the 26th there. Yeah, so that was the 26th at 4 o'clock. We started to get a move to the upside with the euro. 26 at 4 o'clock. No, it's a midnight. It does have fundamentals, but I have to say I can't profess to know what's the real driver with Bitcoin. I don't really know what they're based on. There's always some sort of news announcement that somebody's buying a load of cryptocurrencies, or you know, another company is going to be sort of start using certain platforms, and Bitcoin starts to strengthen. But what was interesting, or what is interesting, I think, about Bitcoin is that when we look at things like Ethereum, now this is a daily chart on Ethereum. Ethereum hasn't really sort of started to pick up in the same way that Bitcoin has. On the weekly chart, it's still kind of down here in the doldrums, whereas Bitcoin has started to it has started to kind of break now to the upside on its longer term time frame. That the break of the 5,000 level seems to be key. Looks like we got a little bit of almost a bull flag, I guess you could call it, on a weekly chart. Ripple's the same. So Ripple is another cryptocurrency that seems fairly popular, hasn't gone anywhere. So it looks at this stage that it's not a cryptocurrency story, but an actual Bitcoin story. But I can't profess to know what is driving it, mate. If I'm completely honest, they seem it does have fundamental reasons to move, as everything does. But to have to look for it is a lot harder than looking for what moves the general market. So I don't tend to go over there, and I probably never will. I find I find it quite interesting, with cryptos, and maybe when they start having much more money go through them. When you think what 5.2 trillion goes through the FX markets, I think Bitcoin's probably in the millions. It may get to billions, I don't know, but we're talking about 5.2 trillion going through the FX market. So I'm not that interested in trading Bitcoin, but
No.
I want to stay on top of it just in case, loosely on top of it. But I haven't got enough time in the day to really start focusing on this as well. Whereas the others are a lot easier. You can kind of group them in, can't you? You know that everything else is trading off the dollar in on the whole, and you can find out what's going on with the worldwide economy is a lot easier than something which is to a degree a bit of witchcraft.
Oh, witchcraft. I like that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they're all based on nothing. It's the interesting thing that they're all based on nothing, aren't they? When it comes to these currencies, because they're all kind of fiat currencies are based on nothing, but Bitcoin has to be the king of the hill on
that. Yep, absolutely true. We do live in a funny world, don't we? Where we're just sitting here going, we perceive that value is that, and there's really nothing else going on, is there?
No.
This is actually playtime.
Yes.
At the end of the day.
Yes, absolutely. Just accepted.
Funny. Anyway, I'm going to go back to this Aussie Kiwi thing, and I'm so close to being trading this. It's not funny. Sharing screen, I hope. Hourly charts, one I want to look at. And I'm kind of really wishing that this would come down and close below here, because on the 30-minute chart, this is a setup that I do like. But there's two things stopping me here. And the number one is this line here that I put on before. That is, in terms of recency, fairly strong resistance right now. And why do I think right now is the time for this to break out and go long? The only thing that's really giving me an indicator is this scenario here, where we've bounced off the trend line, which is a trend line, and the daily pivot at the same time. We're now getting somewhat of a confirmation that if price is willing to go to here, it's willing to go longer. But how far longer is my question. And that resistance area is the one that spooks me. Otherwise, I'd be more than willing to take this long here with a tight stop just underneath the trade line there. And that would only give me, I think, about an 8 pip risk or something like that. Not even 7 pip risk. I just don't like trading candles that small. So I'm going to have to wait. And if the hourly chart gives me what I'm looking for, so a big bear bar is what I want to see, something down here. And if I do see that, I will trade this long, but I'll be taking profit very, very early. I'll be taking profit at that line. So let me turn this into something that makes sense. Enter here around about 105.93. Stop loss would have to go below the daily pivot. So I'd be looking at about a 15 pip risk. And I would have to take profit at 4 pips. It still doesn't make a lot of sense. Still doesn't. So keen am I to get in this, though, that I would consider it. But I'd have to take profit there and move my stop so that I'm safe, because this is very likely to hit that level and come back and retest the daily pivot. If that's the case, I'm out and I lose. And that's the risk that's associated with this. And that's why I don't want to take this trade. But gee, it's close. It's getting to the point where I'm really keen to get in, but I have to be a good boy. Euro Aussie. Look, this is just too far up for me to be considering going long until I get a support level. What have I got? Yeah. That's bordering on too acute for me, so I won't look at it. Yeah, I can't do anything till we get down here. So again, same old. Down here, break, consolidate, back above, retest the confluence area. Away you go. Long time from now. Dolly Yen's having a little trek to the downside right now. I'd be tempted to take this trade long, except I've got a barrier in the way. What have we got here? 15. That was not too bad. Not too bad. What's the 30 saying? It's a mite messy. I'm considering it. Let me get rid of that.
Which chart are you looking at?
Sorry, mate.
Which chart is that? Sorry.
This is Dolly Yen, 30-minute chart.
Oh, Dolly Yen, you're going to go for it?
No, I didn't say that. I said I'm looking at it.
You're going to consider it.
I need to have a good look at this, and yeah, generally, if I have to look this close, I'm going to say no.
You know, mate, I can see the case for the long, and it's long you're looking at, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
I can see the case for the long on this one, and actually, looking at this one on longer term, so it is messy though, isn't it? Jeez,
it's very messy
one to try and ascertain. I'm just I'm just looking at this on some of these longer term timeframes, and I've got Dolly Yen on the monthly. Difficult to kind of read. Didn't really get below this low. Hasn't really got beyond this high. So it's one of those kind of in the middle of a range things of the on the monthly. The weekly is, however, moving to the upside when we start to see this point here create some support. It's got a little bit stuck here, but then when we come down to the detail, this line for me, that's the line there, which means it might swing down a little bit. That bar would suggest as well. I see that's the area. That's a tricky one there, but that's the. Let's just have a look at this line along here. See, that to me does look like a potential for a deeper retracement. And then at the lows, depending on if they kind of meet the trend line at 110, maybe 111 or something. That's the area that I'd be looking at taking that in the opposite direction.
Yeah, problem is I can make a case for both ways, and that's generally the time. And look, I don't know why. It's just this week. Should I?
Well, yeah, if you can make a case for both ways, mate, that's what profit's all about.
Um, I'm not sure what that alludes to, Ash, to be fair.
I mean, is it one of
Um,
those that because usually the picture's a lot clearer, isn't it? For you.
exactly right. And it is generally a very clear picture what I need to do. And as I just said, if I've got to look this hard for a trade,
Mm,
then I don't need to be trading, frankly.
no.
And it is hard work. And I just don't get it. It shouldn't be right now. It should be easy. And it's not. And the reason I say it should be easy is because we've got nice lines to play with. So I can see the picture, but what I can't see is the detail. And the
Mm.
detail is just eluding me. And it is very, very frustrating. So, mate, I'm just going to say no to everything right now.
Yeah,
But
I don't think there's anything
gee
wrong with
whiz.
that. I mean, if this goes long, I'll feel kind of bad for you as well. But by the
Oh,
same
I
token,
don't feel bad for me, mate. That's something you don't need to do.
yeah, I mean, it's one of
I'm all
those, isn't
good.
it? I think it's a bit like the gold trade from yesterday. I think sometimes you have to make a choice when you're in a trade to make money by being out of it. You know, when the pictures change.
You've got to be prepared to say, well, I'm wrong.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
must have that in the back of your mind. And really, you should have a time frame or a time factor or a level in mind that
mm,
triggers that emotion, if you
mm,
like, or
yeah,
triggers that decision.
yes,
And if that's a time frame, which it generally is for me, you know, if I haven't been entered into a 30-minute trade, or if I have been entered into a 30-minute trade and haven't got profit, you know, inside 3 or 4 candles, I said, you know, what the hell am I doing here?
yeah.
This is because the market's not doing what I expected the market to do.
Do
And
you
if
know what?
that's the case, something else is going on.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, before we come to wrap up, I don't know. We didn't check the news announcements for the day. I'm just seeing the FTSE 100 really starting to kind of stretch its legs now to the upside. It's been a really difficult period this morning, but it's kind of fluctuated between 57% to the upside, back down to 40% to the upside. So it really is fluctuating around. It can't make a clear decision, but as I said, a great area to go long, and that has proved to be the case with the FTSE. That if you did manage to kind of get yourself in the market, then it's starting to work out for you. And there's some targets that aren't too high up here, but we didn't check the news, and just want to check the news because I want to see what time Mark Carney is due to speak. Okay, it's quite a long time in the day, isn't it? Italian PMI, manufacturing PMI has come out positive, which is looking like a driver right now. Manufacturing PMI out of Switzerland was showing it to the downside. Spanish PMIs were decent as well. So the Purchasing Managers Index so far pretty good. Let's just check the French data as well, and the German manufacturing. So French came out positive, slightly now just tipping its head into positive territory after being negative for the last reading. And I'm not getting anything on the German manufacturing. Oh, it's because it's not out yet. This one might be quite interesting actually, because this is the one that actually did drive it to the downside before. It looks kind of an innocuous number, but this is going to be a read for a bigger number later down the line. So if this comes out positive and we get overall final manufacturing PMI from Europe positive, then we might actually start to see the FTSE 100 just move to the upside with a little bit of relief that the world economy isn't too bad out there. Jerome Powell's statement is not as dangerous as the market reaction initially, and we might just start to see that the FTSE 100 just have a half decent morning, move to the upside and possibly even hold. That will mean if we get some decent numbers here, that will probably mean that I won't come out of my long at the daily pivot. I will probably just let it run a little while longer. That's not definite by any means, but I might just leave it run slightly beyond that point. Sorry, I was changing that because it was a bit messy, but actually probably on the wrong time frame. That's a bit better. Yeah, I might let it run a little bit longer. It could struggle to get through these points, but the market has been quite happy to trade to the upside on numbers which have been okay. So let's see what happens. You see how it's pausing just before the release of that German data. So it's obviously going to have an impact of some degree. Obviously, an awful number is probably going to drive this significantly lower, and a decent number is going to drive it higher, even though it's only yellow news. But a number that is slightly better off will probably just give the market just a little bit of relief down here, and we can look for maybe a stronger FTSE.
All right. Well, I'm going to wrap with the Aussie Kiwi. And I'm going to say as much. If I can get a close below this trend line, and I'll point it out by going to my chart. Are you finished, mate?
Yeah, just the numbers came out actually slightly weaker, so that probably won't help it. I'm just going to double check on the euro. See, the euro's coming off a little bit because of that after a little boost. But let's see what happens in the close in the next 5 minutes, because the hourly bar may not look too bad by the end of it. But yeah.
What news are you talking about?
Oh, just the manufacturing numbers, manufacturing PMI. We just had German final manufacturing PMI. It's come out at 44.
What, at 5 minutes to the hour?
Yes.
Okay. They just tend to poke that little yellow news around the corner somewhere.
Yeah, they do, and it is yellow.
They don't want to interrupt with the top of the hour.
No, not the big stuff. Yeah, not the big stuff. But yeah, it's not a huge, doesn't have huge significance, but it is a bit of a barometer. So you know, all of this stuff has to be watched to a degree.
All right, I'm going to tell you what I'm going to do with Aussie Kiwi, and that'll pretty much be it. I'm still a little bit bearish on the euro, so this rally might be good for me. I've also got the Forex Factory up, didn't want that. Okay, so what I want to see is this current bar. This is an hourly chart on Aussie Kiwi. I want to see this bar close below that red line, which is 105.84. So if it closes anywhere below 105.84 or on 105.84, I will place a long order above that bar. And if that is the case, I will definitely take profit at 105.97. So there's very little time to react here. If you want to set your trade managers to that, happy days. It is a very quick exit for TP1, and your target is extremely obvious. It is the weekly pivot. So you'd be risking in the vicinity of 8-9 pips to get about 15. So it's 1.5 to 1. If you wanted to put your stop in a safer place, you're down here and trade 1-to-1 to the weekly pivot. That's the best I can do for you. That's the only trade I see at the moment. Really is the only trade I see at the moment. Euro dollar, still keen to get short, but I've got nothing to get short off. And what else was there? There was one more. Oh, yes, dolly. Should we go back there to dolly yen? Look, this trend line doesn't exist, guys, because it's been broken twice. But I have to change so that we've got something to look at. If we get this candle becoming a low and a trend line through or a trade line through here, that becomes a possibility for me to trade. Now, I would trade this in either direction if I get the right signals. So if this breaks, if it becomes a trend line or a trade line, that is, if it breaks, and in particular, if the daily pivot gets tested, and then we get back above that level and retest it, I would definitely go long. Exactly the same scenario on the other side. Break, best case scenario, hit the weekly pivot, but not necessary. Just consolidate in this area, get back below and retest from below, short. So that's, if there's a clear picture that what I need to do today, that one's it. And so is Aussie Kiwi. So really, they're the only two things that are absolutely clear to me at this time, what I need to do. Everything else, I can just sit on my bum and wait for it to happen because I've got nothing else at the moment. That is it for me, mate.
Great stuff. All right, buddy. Well, for me, I'm just going to wait on the FTSE. I'm going to look for a slightly higher price, probably come out the long at that point, and then let the markets unfold just a little bit more. I still think the long has got some legs to run, and as I say, it wouldn't surprise me to see us back up here again. But we should get another chance here. So maybe coming up, coming down, and then see if we can carve out a higher low on an hourly chart or a 4-hourly chart. And I'll be happy to go long again. I wanted it down at this price, but we just need to see a little bit of clearing out with some of these patterns before we get too comfortable here. The hourly
right.
bar.
So, sorry, mate. Aussie Kiwi didn't close below the trend line or trade line, so I'm not going to trade it.
Okay, good stuff. Just on the hourly bar here, actually pretty negative, spinning top and also an inside bar. So FTSE still got some. I think it's still got some challenges here. Let's see what happens with it. Okay, we'll have a great weekend, guys, and it's been a decent show, but still waiting on just some things, I suppose, to set up. I think both Jeff and I quite like some of these prices, but the charts just need to get just a little bit cleaner. And,
a little bit frustrating that we're not seeing a lot of trading action in this show at the moment, this week in particular, but that will change. And whilst we're not trading, I guess we're talking about something that's may or may not be interesting, but certainly I enjoy it. So hopefully you guys are getting something out of it as well.
Brilliant stuff. All right, buddy. All right, well, have a great weekend, Jeff. And to everyone else, have a great weekend. I'll speak to you next week, buddy, and enjoy yourself. We'll be back same trade time, same trade channel on Monday.
You betcha. Have a good one, guys.
No, we won't.
Hold on.
No, we
Monday,
won't.
what's happening?
It's bank holiday.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, it's bank holiday over here, so it'll be Tuesday. We'll be back.
Well, Tuesday sounds good to me. Those of you who are Slingshot subscribers, we've got Strategy Leader Coaching coming up in 2 hours, and we've also got the original show coming up in 4 hours. I think that is 8 o'clock Singapore. So busy night. Hopefully we'll see a few of you there. It's the original show, by the way, tonight. So free for everyone. And that is at 8 p.m. Singapore, I'm pretty sure. See you later, mate. Have a good one.
Yeah, you too, mate. See you later. See you guys.